If you want to composite your background in Photoshop or After Effects or any other compositing software, then there's one or two things you need to pay attention to in 3ds Max. By default, the edge pixels of your foreground are going to be blended with the edge pixels of the background so that we don't get jagged edges at that transition zone. So that's going to be anti-aliased by default, just like everything else in the mental ray rendering. And that's fine, except if we were to just leave this as it is and try to composite it in Photoshop, what we would end up with is a white fringe, in this case, around this area. We don't want that, obviously. We want to prevent that from happening. So the key to this is we can turn off the MR physical sky just by going to the environment dialog, rendering environment, and we can disable it by just clicking use map and turn that off. Go ahead and render. Now that doesn't actually change the lighting. All it's going to do is prevent that backdrop from appearing in the rendering. And that way we won't get this anti-aliasing between our foreground and background with that white fringe. So we can take a look at the alpha channel now, and it looks exactly the same as it did before. The only difference is we don't have the actual image pixels of the MR physical sky background. The other thing we need to do is make sure that we save this out with the alpha channel intact. So I'm going to go to click Save over here. It's one way to save out an image. And I want to make sure that I save it into my current folder, current project folder's render output. That's the proper location to save things out to. And I want to save it as, we'll call this one bath.tga. TGA stands for Targa. Let's say it's the safest format because it's one of the oldest formats. And when I click Save here, I'm going to be prompted as far as what format options I want. And what I want is definitely 32 bits per pixel. That's very important because a 32-bit per pixel image in this case means it has 4 channels: red, green, blue, and alpha, or what's traditionally known as an RGB plus A. This switch, whether it's pre-multiplied or not, is not really going to make any difference in this case. And the compress switch, it's not going to apply lossy compression. It's a form of lossless compression, which doesn't degrade the image. It's called RLE, or run length encoded compression. Again, it doesn't matter whether this is on or off. If it's on, you'll have a slightly smaller file size. So in fact, these are the default settings for the target image. 32 bits per pixel compressed with pre-multiplied alpha. Go ahead and click OK. So that's how I will save out an image in order to prepare it for compositing in Photoshop, After Effects, or any other compositing application.